I can just about guarantee that you were never taught how to sit down. Just like most of us, as we were younger, we were told, take yourself over there and sit down somewhere. And what did we do? We trampled over to where the place was, the furniture was, and we just planted our butt in that particular seat, not having any correction or any direction on how to sit appropriately. Well, that's what we're going to talk about today, is now that we are adults, we can understand how to sit, especially the men, like a gentleman. Sit with sophistication and class. So let's dive in. What's up, folks? Grandison Shines here with the League of Prestigious Gentlemen, and today we are going to be talking about how to sit properly. As I said initially, you probably weren't taught how to sit. I remember very vividly one time during my corporate days, my boss at the time said, hey, today I'm going to teach you how to walk. And I was already about 19, 20 years old, and I'm thinking in my head, what do you mean teach me how to walk? I've been walking for over a decade now. What are you talking about? So I asked him, what do you mean by that? He said, I'm going to show you how to walk like gentlemen walk professionally. He says, I'm going to walk down this aisle. Actually, we went into this very, very long hall, and at the end of the hall there was a turnstile desk. He said, a turnstile doorway. He said, I'm going to walk down this aisle and no one's going to talk to me. I'm going to walk back and people are going to come, and when I walk back, people are going to stop and talk to me. I was like, no way. And guess what? He did just that based on his gait and how he walked. Well, what about sitting? Has anyone ever taught you how to sit properly like a gentleman? Well, we're going to dive into that shortly. I have a presentation for you. I'm going to show you some slides so you can see exactly what I'm talking about and where to appropriately utilize these sitting positions or sitting postures. Before then, let's see the video that caused a lot of frenzy. All right, so I posted this on our platforms and people had various degrees of understanding. Some had no understanding, and some actually got what I was talking about, and they appreciated how to sit. They said, no one's ever taught us this, but there are a lot of other comments. We may get into that. A lot of other comments that were very, very different. So let's stay tuned. All right, here we go. Let's keep it LPG. You know how to sit on your ass, but you don't know how to sit with sophistication like a real gentleman. Knowing how to sit properly in the presence of company has become a lost art. And if you observe how most men sit today, it's clear no one's ever sat them down and taught them how to sit with class. Sitting properly shows that you're confident, that you have sophistication, and that you are considerate of company. Let's dive in. Here are 3 things a gentleman never does while sitting in the presence of company. Stay to hear the last point because this is the one I see men doing the most. And you're actually showing that you have no class and that you have 0 etiquette. Here we go. Point number 1, a gentleman never slouches. Slouching signals bad posture, low energy, low self-confidence, and a number of other undisciplined traits. Instead, sit with your pelvis all the way to the back of the chair and make sure you keep your back straight. Point number 2, a gentleman never sits closed like he's boxed in. Doing this signals nervousness, insecurity, and low self-confidence. Instead, he spreads. Gentlemen spread to show higher self-confidence, refinement, and higher status. In fact, if you do your research, you'll see that they call this the science of spreading. Other sources also label it as expansive posture, dominant signaling, and a term I really like, which is called high-powered body language. And point number 3, and this one I see the most. You doing this shows you have no sophistication at all. Listen, a gentleman never, I mean never, points or shows the sole of his shoe to the company that's sitting around him. Never. Why? Because a gentleman knows that the sole of his shoe represents the dirtiest part of a person's attire. Think about it. The sole comes into contact with dirt, mud, street debris, unsanitary surfaces, and even animal waste. So, why direct something unclean towards your company? There you have it. Let's keep it LPG and always sit like a real gentleman. That's the video after 52,000 views that caused a lot of ruckus at various degrees of understanding and understanding what or how to think about this. I believe that sitting, well, at least I know, I've done the research on it. Sitting used to be taught back in the gentlemen's schools. It used to be taught actually to ladies as well in some of the ladies' schools that were more female oriented on how to be classy like a lady. The one thing, class, it's like class has now gone by the wayside. And we hear people utilize that word, show some class. What does that really mean when they say show some class? Well, what they're talking about is show some level of standard, some level of decorum, some level of appreciation for understanding how things work. And understanding how things work, here's another thing that I see in here that a lot of the younger people got wrong or misunderstand. I hear all the time that people say, I don't care what people think about me, but yet they're posting information on social media to get attention. I don't care what people think about me, but yet they're posting information to get validation. Well, if you look at that statement, hear that statement, you can't have it both ways. And so I believe people do understand that there is some level of perception that people have about them. I saw a guy that held a shirt when I was flying back last week from Florida, said, only God can judge me. Not true. Another subject for another time. Well, he's saying that because, and people say that because they intrinsically know, they innately know that there are other people that are watching them from afar. They may not ever say anything, but there are people that are watching how they conduct themselves in the social area. There are people that are watching that will have a perception of how they conduct themselves in the professional area. There are people that are watching them that might not ever say anything, that are in their personal life also, that shows that they know that they are perceiving something about them. Let that sink in for a minute. So the question becomes, why not ascend to the highest level of demonstrating some sort of competence? Why not ascend to the highest level that you can attain in understanding how to sit with class and or sophistication? Sitting properly is a skill set like anything else. Even in terms of posture, a lot of times people sit, but they don't understand how to sit. They sit and you see that back has this big bulge and curve because they're always slouched over. Talk about that shortly. Or they sit way back and their pelvis is moved forward, still creating a position of slouching. Well, some of us understand the assignment when we heard it about understanding how to sit properly. And I tell you, understanding how to sit properly raises your level of status, or even perceived status, raise your level of confidence, or even your perceived confidence that someone else perceives about you, but it also makes you the person who's utilizing said techniques in order to be more confident in how you're addressing the public. And that's the main thing. Most people don't realize that you are addressing the people that you are in front of. Let that sink in for a minute. You're addressing them in a certain way. And if you show yourself as being classy, sophisticated, cultured, then they will perceive you as that and they will guaranteeingly treat you differently. I see it all the time. And it wasn't until I changed how I spoke from a verbal communication, and it wasn't understand how I strategically utilize nonverbal communication, which if you do your research, you'll see that it's up to 93% of your communication. When these two got under control, when I mastered these two, the whole world changed for me. Level of success, everything else went up. Because you need, regardless of whatever you think, you need people in order to be successful. I'll say that again, regardless of how you think, you need other people outside of you in order to be successful. You need clients to buy your product or service. You need vendors who will sell a product or service for you. If you have partners, vendors, or strategic suppliers, you need those relationships in order to get your product so you can assemble your product correctly if that's your line of business. You need other people. And people want to deal with people that they know, like, and trust. You've heard that before, especially if you're in sales. People want to deal with people that have a higher level of success. People want to deal with people who are no fluff in how they deal with things. So I'm going to go through this presentation, and you will always have an opportunity to sit down in front of company. Sit down in front of business partners or potential clients, and also sit down in front of people that you are socializing with. And I tell you, no other greater disdain for me happens when people are not respectful or being mindful of other people's perceptions towards them. And they come in with a careless attitude, they come in arrogant, they come in uncultured, unsophisticated. That's not how a gentleman operates. A gentleman is a person that continuously learns. This is one aspect. So as we dive into the presentation I'm going to show you right now, we're talking about one aspect of a gentleman's life. We're talking about sitting with sophistication. When you are in the social arena, you will be sitting in front of people, and you may have the urge, desire to cross your legs if that's you. Some men don't cross their legs, some men do. To each his own. Either way, sitting properly, as I explained in the video, with your pelvis all the way back of the chair, not slouching, is very respectful for the people that you're dealing with. And the people that make the worst comments, I'm convinced that these are the people who are not in front of people that can help them be successful. Because if they were, they would totally change their mindset about them. They either do something that doesn't involve some level of professional decorum, selling drugs, doing other things that are street illegal or illegal period, or they don't run in these circles. If you ever aspire to go beyond a greater level of success where you are right now, talking to the guys who are aspiring to excel in life, and I'll show you the 12 pillars of life, 12 domains of life where a man should be successful. I'm going to show you that. If you ever want to aspire to that, then you have to think differently. You have to present yourself differently. This is what this conversation is all about. So let's look at this here. Sitting with sophistication, the silent language of respect, status, and composure. If you can see the gentleman, how he's sitting here, he's spread. Everything sends a message. He's spread, he has his legs crossed, what we call the knee over knee position. And again, very confident in his demeanor, his posture straight, his pelvis all the way to the back, and we're going to dive into that a little bit more. The three ways that I personally sit in my observation and research and study how most men sit. The first one here is, well, we won't get into it, but let's talk about what it communicates first. So how you sit communicates your assurance and your confidence, your self-assurance and confidence, and also self-mastery, because you can sit and not be fidgety, you can sit and cross your legs and not continuously moving your foot or shaking your leg. All these things show a level of sophistication. So it doesn't matter what you think, you are giving something, you are portraying or disseminating energy that other people perceive about you. Can't help it. You can't help it. And if you say you don't care, that's a very immature statement. So how a man sits communicates his self-assurance, his respect for the room, and his awareness for the subtle codes of social status. And that's what we're going to talk about. There's a social aspect to this. One of the pillars of the 12 pillars of success that a man has. One of the domains, and I did a poll online in the private Facebook group. I said, which one do we want to hear about? They gave me 3 options, and social was the winner in terms of the percentage. Now, we take the social calibration, or the social, what's the word I'm looking for? The social, let's say social calibration, we can funnel that down. We can funnel that down to presence. We can further funnel presence down to how a man walks. We can further that down also in alignment with that to how a man sits, and that's what we're talking about today. So as you're sitting in these social settings, keep this in mind. So when we start talking about the 3 types, let's go through that right quick. First of all, the classic knee over knee. This is how the image you see on the right. The traditional European standard for formal and business settings. And oftentimes, and I hear this in some of the comments, oh, you're trying to sit like white people, or this is white people stuff, or whatever. It's like, no, you're missing the whole entire point. We also have that thought process here in the Western culture too. It may have, and this is, I'm gonna say Western, the European's Western, but still the Eastern culture has the same opportunity. And you will see different positions in how people cross their legs. Okay, so the impression signals sophistication, high self-control, and understated presence. And this is all about presence. You should have a presence. This is one of the skill sets that every man should master, is presence. And a whole month's conversation, a whole other video set just on presence alone. Presence is very formidable for you to learn as a gentleman. Every gentleman focuses and practices and masters his presence. Now, the footprint. If it's taking up excess physical space, there are some positions that you sit wider leg, even if you're leaning forward and you're talking, and let's just say that you're sitting in front of a coffee table and you're talking across the table with other people or other people beside you, you may sit at the edge of your chair. And typically, a man, when he sits at the edge of the chair, his legs spread. That takes up more room. We call it man spreading sometimes. That's a crazy term, right? I'm just throwing that in there. But the footprint is smaller physical space. And that smaller physical space you can have people on either side, and therefore you have a smaller footprint, take up less room. It's a subtle sign of respect for others in the room. And if we look at the other aspect of that, we have the ideal, the nuance. That's ideal for tailored trousers, maintain a clean, unbroken drape in terms of the pants, as you can see here. So we want to have it so that it doesn't bunch up here, or we'll talk about this later on, but understanding not showing the skin here. Some people don't wear socks with their dress shoes, kind of weird, but some of them don't. And understanding these lines we'll talk about later, but the creases in the pants, when I say lines, not just talking about the inseams and outseam along with the crease that you have in the pants. All this does matter. If you understand it, you don't have to get that granular, but there are some things that are very strategic in understanding how not to position or position your legs so that people can see, i.e. bearskin, which we'll talk about later on. Secondly, is the traditional ankle cross. If you're sitting at a desk, if you're sitting at a table in the boardroom, oftentimes I see this also as very popular, crossing at the ankles. And some people will say, oh, that's feminine. Okay, he's not turned to the side, he's sitting comfortable. Now it does present a level of comfortableness when you're sitting there at the table, but also how you have your hands, things that people see over the table, that's also another conversation. So timeless choice for an understated, grounded stance here with this one here. So the impression is it conveys a relaxed yet alert confidence, avoids any appearance of stiffness while maintaining strictly neutral. It's not overbearing. It's not intrusive to someone else's space. All these things should be considered when you're sitting. Second thing here, we have it keeps feet anchored, right? Keep the feet down from hitting somebody beside you, twisting or whatever. If you do twist to get out of the way or whatever, or to move out, to scoot back, you can twist or look at the board, whatever the projector is, or the board at the front, whoever's at the front of the table. You can turn, if your leg's up, oftentimes I also see people say, excuse me, I can tell that they hit the person underneath the table. But keep your feet anchored, ensure trousers don't ride up excessively. And again, when your feet are down like this, you don't have to worry about that too much. It's when you cross your legs, then this is where some of the advanced sophistication will come into play. Just some things to think about. You don't have to do this exactly. You might be doing it already, but it's something to very much so think about because it does matter. And someone may not ever tell you, but they'll be thinking this in the back of their mind, or they may have conversations with someone else by themselves. Don't arm people with things to talk about you. That's one of the main components. So the figure 4 leg cross, again, more popular. And this is the one I was talking about at the last part of the video. When I said never, ever, ever point the sole of your foot towards company, or sole of your shoe towards company. Most people do. This is the one thing that people don't understand. And this is in Western and in Eastern, even way more so the Eastern philosophy of how to sit. If you show the bottom of your shoe down, it is downright disrespectful. And if you ever have an opportunity to do some international business and talk with other people, this is how I know this, they will tell you that this is very, very apparent. My wife is from the Middle East and she also says this is the same thing. Right? So understanding how the bottom of your shoe represents the dirtiest part of your attire, as I stated in the video. So why show that? Have you ever looked at the bottom of your shoe? I've looked at the bottom of people's shoes because they've pointed towards me. Even some of my friends were sitting there and it's like, I want to see the bottom of your shoe. It is disrespectful. So the impression projects a relaxed, dominant, and informal confidence. This one does take a little bit more space though. And you can have varying degrees of this one here. As you see, sole of the foot can be shown here. The next one we're going to dive into is it won't show that. Okay, so we have the footprint of physical claims of more lateral space, right? You read, so the lateral space being from the foot to the knee, that part being more spread out. Not like the second one that I'm going to go back to. I'm going to go back a slide because I think I skipped one, and understanding how that reads, okay? So it reads as casual projection of status and ease. This one here, Knee over knee. This is the one that you can utilize so that you don't show the bottom of your shoe to your company. Very, very important to understand how to facilitate that, making sure that you don't have the opportunity to be rude, to be inconsiderate, because that's how they'll see it. They'll see it as rude and inconsiderate. It doesn't matter what you think. It's how they perceive the action that was directed towards them. So we're going to continue on. Folks, if you are part of the program, you'll have this into the back end of the vault. You'll be able to see this in its totality. You'll also be able to download the PDF version of this particular presentation, the slide deck, and that way you can look through it at your own speed, all right? The figure 4 caveat. Here's the thing about the caveat that I wanted to talk about for this. So this one here, again, is the figure 4, all right? Ankle over knee. Here's the ankle over the knee. Here's the caveat on this one here. Strictly informal, conservative, international settings, figure 4 posture. Yeah. Now, taking up excessive lateral space and exposing the sole of your shoe can easily be interpreted as overly casual, or worse, entirely dismissive of the company present to you at the moment. That's the caveat. You have to remember with this one here that you have an opportunity to show how unsophisticated you are, how low class you are. Gentlemen, sit with class. I'll say it again, gentlemen, sit with class. And a gentleman is a calling, I know it's not for everybody. And if it's a calling for you, great. If it's not a calling for you, okay, cool. You don't have to watch the entire video. You definitely don't have to aspire to utilize some of the things that we're talking about in the video. But a gentleman's very astute in business as well. And so the business aspect of things are very peculiar and very particular for, and very strategic for the gentleman as well. So we have that information. I'm going to go to a couple more opportunities here just to kind of show you where the opportunity for mastering posture. So the mastery of posture is not found in a single stance, but an intelligent calibration of formality and space. Understanding, remember we're talking about social calibration, social adeptness, not social ineptness by not being aware. As we see here, so from a conservative, strictly conservative standpoint to a casual standpoint, right? Here's a compact and contained all the way to more open and exposed. So you have the classic cross, right? The first one that we saw, that was more conservative, more compact. And then we talk about a little bit more spreading here. This one here, the traditional ankle cross, as you can see the guy here in the boardroom, never mind that picture. We have the ankle cross. This one here sits at casual, informal, right? So, and you have it, it's not so wide. It's not so wide in terms of its presentation as well. The last one, the figure 4 cross, again, very much so wide in its presentation. I want to show you this graphic so that you can understand where it fits into the grand scheme of things, the formality setting. If you want to be more formal, the ankle over knee, very conservative, very sophisticated, it's the knee over knee, all right? So the rules for etiquette. 2 non-negotiable directives for the public gentleman. Whatever the preference or stance, right? The gentleman's posture is governed by strict unspoken rules regarding his physical boundaries and sartorial presentation. Sartorial presentation, from that word, talk about your clothing. Your clothing, how you present yourself with your clothing, your attire there. Understanding, rule number 1, mind the hems. Mind the hems. Ensure socks are long enough so that you don't show bare skin, right? So even when you cross your legs, that's when you really have to be mindful of that, because oftentimes we sit, we have the pinch and we pull up the pants legs. You'll see older gentlemen do that. You see sophisticated gentlemen do that. They understand the cross. Most of the time they're going to cross their legs, but it's also comfort in not pulling of the set of your trousers or your pants, your slacks. Understand how that utilizes. I like wide leg slacks. So I prevent a lot of this by just having a wider level or a wider pant leg. I have a different athletic build as well, from the bottom down as well, and the thighs and the butt area. So I like having wide leg pants. True refinement lies in unbroken continuity, okay? Bare skin breaks the line of a tailored suit, shatters the illusion of composure. That's exactly what it does. So make sure the socks are long enough. Understand that even when you do cross your legs, that's going to be an opportunity. The rule number 2, spatial awareness. Be aware of your space. Be aware. I saw a video the other day, a lady was mocking men and mansplaining, and she sat on I think she was on a subway, probably New York, and she did a split right in the seat. Very rude, taking up a lot of space, would let the guy sit out. It was a joke, but somebody recorded it, and they recorded the whole interaction, and it was just crazy to see, but that's an over-exaggeration. But be mindful of space. And I think most guys are mindful of the space they take. Sometimes you just don't care about how they sit. Most guys wouldn't like sitting too close together anyway. Oftentimes while you'll see in cigar shops, gentlemen sit in chairs that are isolated. They're single chairs because gentlemen, we like that space. We like our own space, and we want to spread. The last thing, again, be aware. Avoid man spreading. That's the whole opportunity there. When I say man spreading, that utilizing it as an over-exaggeration piece. We all sit a way that enables us to spread. At least for me, gentleman is comfortable and understanding confidence, and I'm confidently sitting because I'm comfortable the way I'm sitting, I will spread. That's just the way I sit. And most of us do that as well. And then finally, we have the 3 looks from all 3. The 3 views of all 3. Here we have the boardroom, he's crossing his ankles. We have the classic, crossing knee to knee. And then this one here, not so much, but usually the ankle to the knee there as well. Master these 3 levels of how you're going to sit and utilize them strategically, and make sure that you follow us on our social media. Gentlemen, if you are so inclined, join the private Facebook group that's just for men. We elevate the conversation, dive a little bit deeper and a little bit more personal. If you really want to get some of the intimate conversations, and join the Forge, $30 a month there, and you get all the content, this video and more, way more, in the vault. We call it the vault. That's our content vault. We're adding new content to it every week. PDFs, graphics, videos, everything else. Women, follow us on Facebook as well. You can follow us on our Facebook page. At the private group, but you also follow us on Instagram, follow us on YouTube and Spotify as well. This is Granish and Shine signing out until next time, folks. It's a pleasure chatting with you, showing you information about how a gentleman operates. Let's keep it LPG while we're out there. And remember, show some class and sophistication in how you sit. All right, talk to you later.